Think the Amish lifestyle is all about simplicity and self-discipline? What about when it comes to alcohol? Beer, wine, maybe even spirits. Could these find their way into their seemingly strict world? Stick around, because the truth might surprise you. When it comes to alcohol, the Amish don't have an easy yes or no answer. It's much more complicated than that. Whether or not an Amish person drinks alcohol relies on their community, family, and personal choices. Each Amish village has its own set of rules for how to behave, which is called the Ordnung. The Ordnung isn't a set of strict rules that all Amish groups must follow. Instead, it's a flexible framework that controls everything from what people wear and how they use technology to how they deal with vices like alcohol. Many old order Amish villages don't say that drinking alcohol is illegal, but people do drink it in moderation and with care. People are allowed to drink as long as it doesn't get in the way of their faith duties, their family duties, or their role in the community as a whole. For instance, it might be okay to have a drink of homemade wine or a mug of beer every once in a while at a party, but any behavior that borders on being too much is strongly looked down upon, like being drunk or addicted. The main goal is to live a balanced life that fits with their faith and the ideals of their community. New Order Amish groups, on the other hand, are stricter about drinking. In these places, evangelical beliefs are very important, and drinking alcohol is often seen as a spiritual risk. They don't allow any behavior related to drinking because they don't want it to distract them from their faith or cause arguments with their close-knit groups. As part of their religious duty, they put a lot of emphasis on moral purity and obedience. It's interesting that practical concerns and family customs can also change the way Amish people think. People who grew up in moderately conservative families or communities might quietly accept alcohol in some situations, while others may not drink at all because of a family history or temperance. Even if someone only spends a little time with English culture, it can still change how they feel. For instance, Amish groups that live closer to cities might have more experience with alcohol in nearby towns, which could cause people to have different ideas about how it should be used. A big part of the Amish way of life is staying away from things that could lead to worldliness or too much material stuff. This often shapes how they feel about drinking. Some people can drink on occasion while still living a religious life, but others think that even modest drinking is pointless or harmful. One thing that almost all Amish people agree on is how important it is to stay sober. Everyone knows that overindulging is bad for you, whether it's your health, your family, or your spiritual path. The Amish values of control, simplicity, and taking care of one's body and mind directly go against drinking just to get drunk. In the end, there isn't a single Amish rule about drinking, which is what makes the answer to this question so interesting. Tradition, religion, and practicality all play a role in the choice of whether to drink or not, and this choice can be different even between settlements that are close to each other. It's another example of how the Amish stay true to their core ideals, while also honoring the past. At Amish celebrations, drinking alcohol is more of a culture and traditional thing to do than a fun thing to do. Beer and wine are often served at weddings, big birthday parties, and family meetings, but not in the way you might think. For example, Amish weddings are big events that include both a religious service and a communal meal. People from all over the neighborhood come to these events, which can last for hours. There isn't a lot of drinking or dancing like at non-Amish weddings, but homemade wine is often given in small amounts as a way to toast the couple. A lot of them drink dandelion or muscadine wine, which shows their Germanic roots and ability to make everything from scratch. Beer and wine are also sometimes served at family reunions and birthdays, but the mood is more low-key and casual. This time, drinking is seen as a sign of friendliness instead of wastefulness. It's often served with huge spreads of home-cooked food, like pies, sausages, and other traditional Amish foods. What's interesting is how homemade drinks are used at these parties. Making beer or wine is a skill that has been passed down from generation to generation. Sharing these drinks at parties brings family and friends closer together. The Amish make their own to make sure the quality of the food they eat and to escape the commercialism that comes with store-bought goods. Even though alcohol is sometimes present, getting drunk is strongly discouraged, and the focus stays on community, thanks, and friendship. For instance, at the end of a wedding feast, the guests might sing an a cappella hymn. This is very different from the after-parties of today's events. The Amish believe in balance and moderation, and these events show that even though they drink booze, the main focus is still on their faith and relationships. Rumspringa, which is often portrayed in dramatic ways in the media, is an interesting and difficult time in the lives of Amish teenagers. It's when Amish teens, who are usually between 16 and 20 years old, have more freedom to see the world before they decide if they want to become baptized and join their towns in faith. How does alcohol fit into this picture, now that restrictions are being eased for a short time? Rumspringa gives some Amish teens a chance to try new things that they can't do in their everyday lives. This can include going to events or parties where booze is served. Light drinking, like beer or cider, might happen in these places, and some people may even try hard booze. But these kinds of behaviors aren't always seen in everyone. They often depend on the person's upbringing and the town they live in. People who come from stricter homes or places where the ordnungs are written in a conservative way tend to do these things less. It is important to note that the public's view of Rumspringa as a wild partying time is not accurate. Some kids use this time to push the limits, but a lot of them do more innocent things like trying on new clothes, working outside the community, or even playing sports with friends who are not Amish. Rather than being the main thing, alcohol is often just a side effect. People who are Amish kids and choose to take part are looked at with a mix of understanding and caution. Parents and older people don't always agree with what kids do, but they often see Rumspringa as an important step that can help them make a smart choice about their life. If they decide to go back after being baptized, they have to follow the community's rules, which usually stress being sober and responsible. For those who don't go back to the Amish church, this is the time when they become part of regular society. The fact that the Amish drink alcohol shows how much they value custom, usefulness, and moderation. There are Amish people who drink, but most of them drink beer and wine instead of spirits. Beer is usually the easiest choice because it's cheap and easy to find. It's simple to move, store, and share, which makes it a good choice for getting together. There are Amish people who go one step further and make their own beer. This practice blends their desire to be self-sufficient with their skill at making things. Homebrewed beer, whether it's dark ale or lighter lager, is seen more as a cultural item than a way to treat yourself. A lot of the time, groups of Amish men work together to brew, and they often use grains that were grown in their own fields. Another important thing in some Amish villages is making their own wine. For example, dandelion wine is very famous and shows resourcefulness by turning a simple wildflower into a loved drink. The Amish's link to the land is also shown by wines made from grapes, berries, or muscadines. In addition to being drunk at parties, wine is sometimes used in the same way that Amish people use folk medicines. A lot of Amish people think that a small glass of their own wine can help them relax or fall asleep. The Amish don't drink as much hard liquor like vodka or whiskey. People usually only use it in very specific situations, like when they're talking to their English or non-Amish neighbors or having a rare chance to share their culture. There is a stronger link between spirits and excess, which goes against the Amish belief in self-control. Because of this, they aren't often made or eaten by Amish people. People think that the few cases of hard booze abuse are more of an exception than the rule. For the Amish, moderation isn't just a rule when it comes to drinking. It's a core part of how they see life. The Ordnung may not be very strict about drinking, but its main point is clear. Self-control is important for living a responsible and peaceful life. Most Amish people don't think that drinking is sinful in and of itself, but they do think that it is sinful when drinking leads to being drunk, reckless, or not doing your job. In Amish villages, there is also a strong sense of responsibility. Any action that disturbs the group's peace or goes against its ideals is quickly noticed, unlike in societies that are bigger and less close-knit. For instance, if someone's drinking makes them less able to drive a buggy or causes problems in the family, community leaders and elders can help fix the problem. The Amish always put the needs of the group ahead of the needs of an individual. This principle of moderation is generally shown even in places where drinking is common. A beer with dinner and a glass of wine at a wedding are not times to overindulge, but times to be moderate and think. They do things this way because they value stewardship in general, whether it's taking care of their farms, their families, or their own self-discipline. That's how every choice ties back to duty. When balance doesn't work and someone is struggling with alcoholism, their sense of community helps them feel safe. Elders and family members often step in to help, whether it's through spiritual counseling or by giving people chances to get back on track with their faith and community duties. The Amish don't always have an official process for rehabilitation, but their caring and connected way of life makes it easy to deal with these kinds of problems. In the end, balancing isn't just about limiting what you buy, it's about keeping everything in balance. The Amish try to find harmony and meaning in everything they do, from the way they work to how they use technology to how much alcohol they drink. There are many reasons why Amish people choose not to drink alcohol, but the main ones are usually practical, spiritual, or cultural. For groups like the New Order Amish, not drinking alcohol is part of a larger commitment to health, wellness, and life, without the temptations of the outside world. Their leaders stress how important it is to keep your mind and body clean for spiritual dedication. Drinking is seen as a way to start doing things that could take your attention away from this. Some Amish people choose not to drink because of their own or their family's past. Abuse of alcohol is rare in Amish villages, but it can happen anywhere. Some people don't drink or smoke as a safety measure, hoping to break harmful family cycles or stay away from settings where temptation could hurt them. For some, it's about being useful. Why drink if it doesn't serve a clear purpose in their lives? A lot of Amish people base their lives on the ideas of meaning and usefulness. If drinking booze doesn't fit with their daily lives or spiritual beliefs, they don't do it. Some Amish churches have rules that members must not drink booze. They see this as doing what God wants and thus following those rules. This stricter approach fits well with communities that put a lot of effort into evangelical missions or are linked to larger Christian groups that promote moderation. For them, abstinence is a way to stay separate from a world that they see is becoming more and more focused on vice, another way to protect their spiritual path. To fully understand how the Amish feel about drinking, it helps to know where they came from in Europe. The Amish got their start in Switzerland in the 1600s as part of the Anabaptist movement. However, their culture has deep roots in Germanic customs, where making beer and wine was seen as basic life skills. These skills weren't just for fun. They were also important for life and being able to take care of yourself. When clean water wasn't always available, beer, wine, and cider were safe ways to stay hydrated, and the process of making or fermenting was a social activity that brought people together. These ways of life were brought to the United States by the Amish when they moved there in the 18th and 19th centuries. They mostly lived in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana, where they found resources and fertile land that let them keep these customs alive. They lived a farming life, so making wine from grapes, dandelions, or berries was a natural extension of that. In the same way, making small batches of beer fit right in with their mindset of do-it-yourself projects and using resources efficiently. This is where the twist comes in. These habits come from custom, but the Amish are very flexible. Over the years, communities started to rethink these traditions based on how they saw biblical lessons, how society influenced them, and what their people needed in real life. The variety of Amish views today can be linked back to this balance between keeping traditions alive and adjusting to new social and moral norms. Some groups still make or drink booze as a normal part of their lives. For some, it has been put aside in order to follow faith rules more closely. When it comes to alcohol, the Amish are not the only people whose beliefs influence their decisions. Different religions and civilizations around the world have distinct approaches to alcohol, frequently influenced by spiritual teachings and communal ideals. Comparing the Amish to Mormons, Muslims, and Christian denominations such as Baptists and Catholics uncovers some intriguing similarities and variances in how faith influences drinking habits. Mormons, or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for example, have a stringent approach to alcohol, abstaining from it totally as part of their commitment to the Word of Wisdom, a health ordinance described in their scripture. Unlike the Amish, who have different alcohol regulations depending on the community, Mormon teachings on this subject are explicit and uniformly observed. This unequivocal restriction is consistent with their overall philosophy in keeping the body free of chemicals that may damage judgment or health. Muslims, taught by the Quran, likewise strictly forbid alcohol, regarding it as harmful and a potential doorway to wicked behavior. For Muslim communities, abstinence from alcohol is both a personal and communal act of devotion, with severe prohibitions that apply independent of location or cultural context. This is in stark contrast to the Amish, who may allow moderate alcohol usage based on their ordnung and prefer to emphasize moderation and community responsibility over a blanket ban. In comparison to other Christian groups, the Baptist denomination frequently has a conservative approach to alcohol, with many followers choosing to abstain. Their viewpoint, like that of the Amish, is based on scriptural interpretations and a desire to avoid behaviors that could lead to intoxication or jeopardize their spirituality. However, not all Baptist groups are uniformly rigid, similar to the Amish, whose behaviors vary according to area and history. In contrast, the Catholic Church allows alcohol consumption and includes wine into sacred rituals such as the Eucharist. This viewpoint is similar to Amish norms, in that wine may be used in festivities or for hospitality. But the Amish always prioritize moderation. While Catholics incorporate wine into their acts of worship, the Amish rarely, if ever, include alcohol in religious ceremonies, viewing it as a social or cultural element. What distinguishes each group is how they navigate the junction of faith and alcohol. Drinking, for the Amish, is about maintaining community harmony and self-control rather than rigorously adhering to religious laws. This adaptable, community-oriented approach contrasts with the stringent prohibitions of Mormons and Muslims, but it has parallels in the moderate traditions of several Christian churches. Finally, the range of beliefs demonstrates how cultural, historical, and spiritual values interact to determine each group's attitude toward alcohol. When people think of the Amish and alcohol, a variety of prejudices and misunderstandings emerge, frequently created by sensationalized media portrayals. One of the most common myths is that all Amish either rigorously prohibit alcohol or, on the contrary, drink freely, particularly during Rumspringa. The truth, as is frequently the case, is more complex. First, it's vital to note that not all Amish drink. Their relationship with alcohol is highly influenced by their community's regulations, known as the Ordnung, as well as personal and familial customs. Some Amish organizations, particularly the New Order Amish, maintain a stringent no-alcohol ban based on spiritual beliefs. Others, including as many Old Order Amish communities, allow moderate use in restricted environments like celebrations and family gatherings. Rumspringa, a period of experimentation for Amish teenagers, is another topic fraught with myths. While television productions and films portray this as a wild period of partying, drinking, and rebellion, the reality is far less glamorous. While some Amish teenagers experiment with alcohol during Rumspringa, many engage in more simple acts of freedom, such as wearing modern clothing or socializing outside their community. For the most part, the experience is more about self-discovery than pure delight. The media also occasionally exaggerates small incidents of alcohol addiction, creating a distorted view of Amish life. The Amish prioritize moderation, community peace, and discipline. Getting drunk or acting dangerously because of alcohol is not the norm and is severely prohibited in all Amish congregations. Excessive behavior is the exception rather than the rule, and it is quickly addressed within the community. Understanding the diversity of Amish customs and the significance of their guiding principles, such as simplicity, balance, and accountability, reveals that their relationship with alcohol is significantly more sophisticated and complex than stereotypes assume. Misconceptions may remain, but a deeper look at their way of life reveals a community that strives for balance between tradition and practicality rather than going to extremes. The Amish and alcohol is a subject that is full of custom, morality, and personal choice. Some people see it as a harmless culture practice, while others worry that it could take their attention away from their spiritual duties. There isn't a single right answer. Each person and each group draws their own line that balances personal beliefs, practical needs, and religious expectations. Thank you so much for joining us today. What surprised you most about the Amish approach to alcohol? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed learning about this unique perspective, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious.